I'm so excited to be back at home in my home studio. I've Christmased it up a little bit, and I've had a great deal of fun doing that. Everything's at a slightly different angle today, so I'm going to be kind of trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be looking and how I'm supposed to be expressing what I'm trying to say. But today we're going to talk about Ukraine because of Volodymyr Zelensky. I tried to spell his name on Twitter the other day and just ultimately decided that I didn't care at all. And you guys are going to more fully understand why exactly I don't at all care about how to spell his name, or indeed about him pretty much at all, other than his value as a human being, as it is innate and inseparable from him as a living thing. But we're going to fully unpack, hopefully understand more about the Ukrainian madness, because there's been a lot of talk about it, but there's not been a lot of an explainer. So we're going to go through some of that stuff. If I can properly switch over here. All right, we're going to look first at the speech that Zelensky gave before Congress. The Ukrainian president delivered an emotional appeal for further American support, vowing that his country would prevail in its war with Russia. So right out of the gate, I have to ask why I'm supposed to care about this country. They're not a member of NATO. They're not technically an ally of the United States, although they did surrender their nukes with the understanding that the U.S. would protect them a very long time ago, if I recall correctly. You guys are more than welcome to fact check me on that. My understanding was that we said we would help them if they needed it, if they gave up their nukes, and so they did. And now we were kind of like, oh, well, maybe we're not really going to do that, but here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to give you a bunch of money. So their president ended up coming over here, wasn't even able to put on a suit for the occasion, and he had a lot to say. So we're going to look at some of his comments. Dear Americans in all states, cities, and communities, all those who value freedom and justice, who cherish it as strongly as we Ukrainians in our cities and each and every family, I hope my words of respect and gratitude resonate in each American heart. Madam Vice President, I thank you for your efforts in helping Ukraine. Madam Speaker, you bravely visited Ukraine during the full-fledged war. Thank you very much. Great honor. Thank you. I'm very privileged to be here. You're not dressing like it. Dear members of the Congress, representatives of both parties who also visited Kyiv, esteemed congressmen and senators from both parties who will visit Ukraine, I am sure, in the future, dear representatives of diaspora present in this chamber and spread across the country, dear journalists, it's a great honor for me to be in the U.S., blah, 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 blah. Against all odds and doom and gloom scenarios, Ukraine did not fall. Ukraine is alive and kicking. Thank you. And it gives me good reason to share with you our first joint victory. We defeated Russia in the battle for minds of the world. This is interesting. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. We have no fear, nor should anyone in the world have it. Ukrainians gained this victory, and it gives us courage, which inspires the entire world. So as I was reading Zelensky's speech, and I do want to clarify that I bear no ill will against Ukraine. I do think that the U.S. kind of unwittingly promised to provide nuclear protection for them should Russia attack. But again, you guys need to fact check me on that. There are historical notes about that I was reading early on during this conflict. I do think that Russia obviously should not invade Ukraine. As Kamala Harris so succinctly told us, Ukraine is a smaller country that got invaded by a bigger country called Russia, and basically that's bad, which is about the extent of my analysis here. But we are going to look at some of the things that have led up to this. Ukraine has a right to exist, obviously. Zelensky has a right to fight for his country. But what's been going on with them? For a long time, we've known that Ukraine is incredibly corrupt, and I'm going to show you that even Joe Biden thinks it's unbelievably corrupt, and in fact, he used it against them in what was functionally a quid pro quo in 2018. We're literally going to watch that clip so you guys can see it for yourselves, and I'm going to encourage you guys to watch that whole thing. It's relatively short. We'll watch it together. But to circle back, he mentions how Ukraine won the battle for minds, which is a very interesting way of saying they ran a psyop, which is exactly what I think the Zelensky speech is. Now, the definition of a psyop, because I do not come unprepared, is military actions designed to influence the perceptions and attitudes of individuals, groups, and foreign governments. To me, that's exactly what this looks like. Partly just because Zelensky is in fact the military leader of Ukraine, and he is over on American soil, begging, groveling, and hoping and praying for more American money. We have already given them $45 billion. We are about to give them, in this most recent omnibus package that was passed by both parties passed this ridiculous, heinous bill. We are going to give them approximately $48 billion with a B more. From my understanding, the whole military expenditure for the country of Russia at home and abroad is $80 billion US dollars. We have literally given Ukraine more money than Russia spends on its military at home and abroad. Again, you guys are welcome to fact check me on that. I welcome any kind of commentary on this for sure. This just made me really mad because I know that we can print money willy-nilly, but it is the money that belongs to our country. This is something that America should receive first and foremost. And honestly, it infuriates me that the condition at the U.S.-Mexican border is what it is, given how much money we're sending over to Ukraine. And I happen to know for a fact that the amount of money that Donald J. Trump requested for a wall on the border, I believe was about $5 billion. We have sent $90 billion, in excess of $90 billion to Ukraine at this point, and the American border, wide effing open. And I'm really resisting the urge to swear right now because I know that people are dying to cross the border. We are incentivizing death for these people who are trying to come to the U.S. We're telling them that it's okay. They die in the desert. They come to the U.S. and they're functionally modern day slaves. It's genuinely disturbing, unbelievably distressing. It is human trafficking left and right. The cartel is seriously capitalizing on this. And there is an unprecedented level of illegal drugs coming across the U.S.-Mexico border because we're choosing to focus our attention on Ukraine instead of on our own needs at home. I have never seen an administration so bent on showing American citizens that they care so little for them. They would literally rather take their money, because you know they're watching your $600 Venmo transactions, and they would rather take your money and give it to another country instead of defending our hometowns and our states from an actual invasion at the southern border. But I must digress because that's just something that ticks me off. I just didn't have an article to read about that. Let me see if I can switch us back to where we were. There we go. All right, so we're going to discuss some of the past corruption in Ukraine because there is a lot. So this is an article from John Solomon writing for The Hill. He wrote this on April 1st, 2019, but it was not an April Fool's joke. And then he talks about, sorry, I got a text message distracting me. 2 years after leaving office, Joe Biden couldn't resist the temptation to brag to an audience of foreign policy specialists about the time as vice president he strong-armed Ukraine into firing its top prosecutor. This is entirely correct. This is exactly what he did, and it is, in fact, on video. We're going to watch this little clip now. It's about a minute long, so just bear with me. Let me make sure you guys can hear it. I'm going to have to turn this mic, I think.
I got all the good ones, so I got Ukraine, and I remember going over convincing our team, or others, to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee.
This is where it gets interesting.
And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion.
Oh, that's interesting. Why not? Tell us, Joe.
They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money.
Oh, what's that? You say? Joe Biden was withholding American funding, the guarantee of an American loan of $1 billion in exchange for something? You know what that's called? That's called a quid pro quo. A quid pro quo is a favor or advantage granted or expected in return for something. Well, that sounds an awful lot like expecting a prosecutor to get fired in exchange for $1 billion, doesn't it? He said this on camera. Joe Biden was so proud of this. Ukraine is so corrupt that he thought he could just say this and get away with it and no one would notice. And you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter if Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor he wanted to get fired, was investigating his son, because there are countless fact checks saying, oh no, this was nothing to do with Hunter Biden. It doesn't matter if it was anything to do with Hunter Biden. The fact that Joe Biden sat there and says that he was more than happy to withhold funds to gain his own political ends is unbelievably corrupt, disturbing. The level of corruption in Ukraine is a huge red flag, should be a huge red flag for the American people and the American government. And there is no sign to me thus far that there will be any kind of check on where this money goes. There will be no one holding them accountable to use it properly. And I don't see this corruption ending. The other interesting connection that I wanted to make for you guys today, and then we'll kind of try to summarize it a little bit. I'm going to keep today a little bit shorter, but I really wanted to emphasize this. Now, MR Online, I believe, is monthly review, and they're not right-leaning. They are, from my understanding, a socialist newspaper. Their very first article from 1949 was from Albert Einstein asking, why socialism? And he was trying to make an argument for socialism. So this is our source, MR Online. And this is about the FTX partnership with Ukraine. And there were, again, lots of fact checks about how, no, this never happened. So let's read this article. This is from November 2022. FTX partnership with Ukraine is the latest chapter in shady Western aid saga. Okay, so we've seen one element of shadiness as far as Western aid to Ukraine. Let's look at this more recent example involving Sam Bankman-Fried. The Ukrainian government mysteriously disappeared online records of its fundraising arrangement with the FTX crypto scam just days before the scandal erupted. That's very interesting. Don't you guys find that interesting? I certainly do. Let's read more. The initiative claims to have raised $60 million for Ukraine, but where did the money go? Isn't that always a question with Ukraine? Where is the money going? They still haven't won their war with Russia despite having more money than Russia spends on their military. The demise of FTX, the fifth biggest cryptocurrency exchange by trade volume in 2022 and the second largest by holdings, has sent a wave of chaos through global financial markets. So far, so good. I'm liking the socialist newspaper. As the turbulence grows, the government of Ukraine is conducting an ongoing cleanup and whitewashing operation to rid any and all reference to a high-level cryptocurrency fundraising arrangement it struck with FTX from the web. Eerily, it seems to have commenced just days before the scandal erupted. Oh heavens, that's crazy. That sounds a little bit corrupt. Online records unearthed by the Gray Zone claim tens of millions were raised by FTX for the Ukrainian government and put to a variety of belligerent uses. But with the company now exposed as a Potemkin village lacking underlying assets and major question marks hanging over whether its operations were from day one fraudulent top to bottom, where does that leave the supposedly successful donation scheme? Were those sums truly raised? And if so, to what purpose were they actually put? So in spite of fact checks to the opposite, here we see a tweet from Sam Bankman-Fried saying, "We just gave $25 to each Ukrainian on FTX. Quote, do what you gotta do." I don't fully understand what that means, but he's fully accepting of this understanding between Ukraine and FTX. But I digress on that point. That's just something that he mentioned, not something that I made up. Let's continue. FTX's destruction resulted from a mass sell-off of the company's native Bitcoin token, FTT, by the rival exchange Binance. Its value plummeted, prompting a 3-day run on billions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency, which in turn created or exposed a liquidity crisis within FTX, as it did not have the available assets required to redeem client withdrawals. FTX filed for bankruptcy on November 11th. Right, but they scrubbed all of this stuff. The Ukrainian government scrubbed all links to FTX before this went down. Okay, hope you guys are keeping up. FTX founder and top Democrat Party donor, interesting connection, Sam Bankman-Fried now faces criminal investigations in the Bahamas. He's free, by the way. He's out on $250 million bail, even though he said he didn't have any money. Not sure, again, where that money came from or where it's going. Who knows? There's a lot here. I'm sorry, guys. It's just crazy. It's such an interesting story. That's why I was a minute late, because I was like, there's just more and more and more. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. Anyway, let's continue. Now faces criminal investigations in the Bahamas, where the exchange was headquartered, and calls for official investigations into the largely unregulated cryptocurrency industry are reverberating across the globe. I made the point that I felt like the FTX thing went down as a reason to regulate the crypto industry. I would prefer this be less regulated rather than more. FTX gave the Democrats, and in fact many of the Republicans, the opportunity to say, oh, you heavens, no, we can't let this go without regulation. It would be terrible if this happened again. That'd be awful with one of our biggest donors. Let's see, where was I? The sudden death of FTX has been compared to the 2008 disintegration of Lehman Brothers that precipitated the financial crisis. Oh, that's great. Massive customer holdings have apparently gone missing thanks to a secret backdoor in the FTX bookkeeping system that allowed Bankman-Fried to make changes to the company's financial records without accountability. Yeah, you always need accountability. I don't care who you are. You could be Volodymyr Zelensky and you could be Joe Biden. You still need accountability from someone. This is exactly the problem they ran into at FTX. This connivance may have been used to hide at least $10 million in client funds Bankman-Fried transferred from exchange to another company he founded, digital asset trader Alameda Research. This is a really good analysis of what happened at FTX. While mainstream media pores over the details of Bankman-Fried's gargantuan crypto scam, not one single major outlet has investigated or even acknowledged FTX's relationship with the government of Ukraine. That's weird. I wonder why not. Sorry, this video has a very sarcastic tone today. Hopefully you guys are enjoying following along with us because it's crazy. There's more. You guys should definitely dig in. I put as many of these links into the description as I was able to before I ran out of time. I'll put the rest in after the video goes up. Were client holdings unaccountably and illegally funneled into the West's proxy war? Or did the supposed aid FTX sent to Kyiv find its way into the hands of Ukrainian scammers, corrupt warlords, and illicit actors? Why not all three? Honestly, Ukraine is not exactly a paragon of honesty or accountability. The corporate media's failure to explain these questions appears all the more perverse given Bankman-Fried's flamboyant promotion of his intimate financial relationship with the government of Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. See earlier tweet. FTX pledges to, quote, turn Bitcoin into bullets, bandages, and other war material for Ukraine. Did they spell that wrong on purpose? I wonder if that was what FTX actually said. The partner between FTX and the Ukrainian government was first publicized on March 14th when the leading cryptocurrency website CoinDesk announced Kyiv had launched a dedicated webpage for cryptocurrency donations dubbed Aid for Ukraine. Under its auspices, FTX pledged to convert cryptocurrency contributions to Ukraine's war efforts into fiat for deposit at the National Bank of Kyiv, allowing the embattled government to turn Bitcoin into bullets, bandages, and other war material. So they did spell it wrong. Interesting. I'm curious where that came from now, because that's that kind of error you can easily trace back to see who said it initially, if it wasn't just made by MR Online. CoinDesk started the initiative, stated that the initiative deepens an unprecedented tie-up between public and private sector forces in crypto. Fascinating. Alexander Bornyakov, I knew I should have read through these names first, an official at Ukraine's Ministry of Digital Transformation, hinted to CoinDesk about an upcoming NFT collection auction to give the next boost to the crypto fundraising process. Sure, NFTs would be the next step if you're trying to launder actual money into cryptocurrency. The Ministry of Digital Transformation played a key role in the successful Zelensky-led campaign to cancel the Gray Zone's Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate's appearance at Web Summit, a major international gathering of the tech industry in Lisbon, Portugal. If any of you guys are nerdy and have a little extra time, that might be really fun to look into. In a press release accompanying the announcement of the FTX partnership with Ukraine, Bankman-Fried explained that at the onset of the conflict in Ukraine, FTX felt the need to provide assistance in any way it could. He promised that the arrangements provided the ability to deliver aid and resources to the people who need it most. Kyiv disappears Aid for Ukraine site days before FTX scandal goes public. The Aid for Ukraine web page has now been deleted, but it can still be accessed via the Internet Archive. I do love the Internet Archive, you guys know this. Until very recently, it encouraged visitors to help Ukraine with crypto and pleaded, "Don't leave us alone with the enemy." Let's see what this looks like. I'm very curious. Takes a second to load. Let's continue here. Okay, the site featured promotional quotes from an assortment of Ukrainian government officials and Bitcoin bros, among them FTX's founder. Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, thanked the crypto community for funding the purchase of helmets, bulletproof vests, and night vision devices. For his part, Bankman-Fried declared himself incredibly excited and humbled to support crypto donations to Ukraine. All these things are couched as quotes, but I want to see their sources for sure. Once it was deleted, the Ukrainian government created a standalone website on November 1st to promote the endeavor. The page was identical, and quotes from Bankman-Fried and references to FTX's involvement and its logo remained in place until the morning of November 15th. Let's take a look here. Oh, it says this is unavailable. Unacceptable. I don't like when things are unavailable, especially when someone says, oh, you can find it here. It's been archived. Has it? Really curious now. Was the original web page's dumping and erasure and the shift to a totally new interface at the time merely a spooky coincidence? Or were the Ukrainians warned of what was coming? What did Kyiv know, and when did it know it? Very valid questions. Bankman-Fried channeled millions to Biden through stealth PAC. And this I would 100% believe. This is a really interesting, really deep well of corruption both in the West and over in Ukraine. And I think that this certainly warrants further investigation. And honestly, I just want to summarize by saying I think that if the GOP had a courageous bone in their body, or some kind of spine to say the least, all of them would be on board with the idea of holding Ukraine 100% accountable for every American dollar they have received. There's just no other way to do this. You cannot just throw money at a wall. This is what we tried to do in China. Not China, sorry. This is what we tried to do in Africa. We tried to fix them. What we did was give them a bunch of aid. And what happened was that it all ended up in the hands of incredibly greedy, power-hungry, maniacal tyrants. And this happened consistently again and again and again. And for some reason, for the same reason that we throw money at a failing school system, we continue to give money to the countries that are incredibly corrupt, incredibly destitute. They're destitute for a reason, and that's because every time we try to give them money, the money does not go where it's supposed to go. It goes to the most corrupt, most power-hungry leaders in the country. And that's kind of what I see happening here, because we also know that Zelensky's wife went on a $40,000 shopping spree last time she was in Paris, and I wonder whose money she was spending there. They're on the cover of magazines. They're spending money like crazy. They're literally coming to the US and insisting on more money. Like, it's a deep concern of the average American citizen, the fate of a tiny European country that has the misfortune of being next to Russia. I don't think that's a fair case to make. I don't think that America owes Ukraine anything. In fact, we've already given them far more than we should have. I just want to show you guys this one. Let's see here. How much aid has the U.S. sent to the Ukraine? Here are 6 charts. $48 billion. Oh my gosh. This is painful. All right, here's how they spent it. They're tapping the U.S. arsenal. They're getting tons of equipment from us. Infantry arms and equipment. Javelins, anti-armor systems, munitions, Stinger systems, TOW missiles, artillery, tanks and armored carriers. Okay, this is fine. This is all for fighting a war. That's a little bit different than just unaccountable money hand over fist. Let's scroll down a little bit. Ukraine towers over other recipients of military aid. Once again, isn't that weird? U.S. military assistance to Ukraine in 2022 compared with the top recipients in 2020. Israel got $3.3 billion, and I hear this a lot. A lot of people really don't like Israel, and they will constantly tell me how much the U.S. has given to Israel. Well, I'm pretty sure that Israel is no comparison to Ukraine at this point. 40 countries have provided military aid to Ukraine. Fine. U.S. aid to Ukraine far exceeds that from other countries. Once again, fascinating. We've given them, $48 billion in our last installment. By share of GDP, East European countries are giving the most to Ukraine. Yeah, probably because they sympathize the most. So Estonia has given a lot, Latvia and Lithuania. So these are all second world, Poland. These are all second world countries, and these are countries that were formerly communist states. It makes perfect sense to me that these countries would want to give money to Ukraine to help them fight what they view as a communist oppressor. For sure. Makes perfect sense. The other thing to keep in mind when we're talking about Ukraine is that In a war between communists and Nazis, when your enemy directly next to you is a communist, what are the odds that you're going to end up a Nazi? Pretty good. Pretty good. When you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, you're going to have to choose something. And unfortunately, there are still battalions. The Azov battalion in the Ukrainian army is still affiliated with Nazi-based organizations. They still have Nazi symbols on their uniform. This is 100% factual. You guys can look it up. And part of the reason that it boggles my mind that people on the left are so much in favor of Ukraine, because this is still very much a factor in Ukraine. I personally understand why it is, but I feel like the left has been yelling for so long about Nazis that they're going to have to kind of explain this one, because they have full-throated defense of this 100%. In fact, I wanted to show you guys this really interesting exchange I had with some leftist people. Of course, I got blocked by all of them in short order. This is from Sergei. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. He is a Ukrainian government official. He's a permanent representative of Ukraine. These are personal and aren't the government's position, less clearly and explicitly stated. That's fine. And this is what he posted. So this is a defacement of the American flag. You are not supposed to change the color. This is not up for debate. And I know he probably doesn't understand this because he's not an American, but it's unbelievably disrespectful. I would never do this with any other country's flag. Ever. Literally. I don't care how allied we are with them. I don't care how much we're supposed to support them. And I will say that the support for this kind of stuff, the support for this is honestly kind of pathological. Like, this is weird. So this is a lady who blocked me because I said terribly hurtful things, as you can imagine. I said, go defend them yourself. Stop selling my children's future for your weak, sappy sob stories, which I feel was fully justified. This woman is all in for Ukraine. Look at this tweet she has for her header. Kiev, the city of courage, the capital of Ukraine, fighting for freedom and democratic values while kicking Russian A with style and class. This lady has changed her profile picture to blue and yellow. And I don't understand this, and I'm not meaning to put her on blast as a person. I'm just pointing to this kind of, it strikes me as a bit of a mind virus, because I guarantee you that this lady is not aware that there is a battalion in the Ukrainian army that still has Nazi patches on their uniforms. I think if she did, she might change her mind what she thinks of them. But again, I'm not convinced that people like this can ever be convinced one way or the other. I got blocked by a few different people in a row. You're unable to view this tweet. Yep. You're unable to view this tweet just because I said incorrect. Because this guy made a factually incorrect statement that, of course, I no longer recall because it wasn't that consequential to me, but he immediately blocked me for entertaining an idea in opposition to his. You know what I do if someone comes in and calls me incorrect? I say, really? Why? What makes you think that I'm incorrect? Because I'm pretty sure that I'm right. I feel like everybody feels that way a little bit, but the fact that we can't even have a conversation about Ukraine just kind of speaks to the level of division that it's causing in the U.S. And I have a serious problem with that. I legitimately have a problem with a country that comes in, sweeps in, demands all this money, and then uses its position of influence to kind of turn Americans against one another. It's mind-blowing to me. And it's possible that Ukraine is just current thing. This is just kind of what happens with what are functionally NPCs, people who don't truly hold their own ideas. But it's genuinely upsetting. And to see Volodymyr Zelensky come over here and beg us for more money is just infuriating. So what I'm hoping will happen here today with you guys is that I'm hoping that this will inspire you all to do more research. I'm going to put the link to the monthly review online in the description so you guys can read it yourselves, because I really want to fact check all of this, because I don't trust anyone further than I can throw them. What I was finding when I was researching this the most was that, oh, this isn't true. This has all been disproven. Oh, what are you looking for? That's crazy. What are you talking about? But the fact of the matter is that Zelensky did pass a new law on cryptocurrency shortly before this all went down, which makes me suspect that it is all very shady. None of that surprises me. The FTX connection doesn't surprise me. Biden's influence over Ukraine doesn't surprise me. Unfortunately, I kind of wish it did. I wish I could be a little naive, have a little fun. But let's see what you guys are saying before I close this up. Hello. Hi, everyone. What's up? How's it going? Yeah, I'm glad she's talking about this. I've been salty about this. Yeah, Man, I don't know if you could tell, but I am salty about this too. This is not cool. Ukraine is important for grain, from what I understand, which is very little, lol. Yeah, I have heard that they are considered, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Holodomor, and that was functionally a holocaust of Ukrainian farmers, from my understanding. I think this was during World War II. I'm not a history buff as such. I'm also not a foreign policy expert. I'm just kind of giving you my 2 cents. But I am familiar with the Holodomor, and I am incredibly saddened by all the people who died during that. But Ukraine was considered the breadbasket of Europe. Communists thought that they could take advantage of that. They were very wrong. Lots of people starved to death. It was a mess, as everything communism touches is. Them comparing him coming here to to Churchill coming was mind-blowing. And Nancy Pelosi saying how the Ukraine is defending democracy. It is not a democratic country. I don't think it is democratic as such. It is incredibly corrupt. I would say it's much more like an oligarchy than a democracy. Ukraine is not our problem. I am inclined to agree. Didn't we technically start this? NATO was pushing into Ukraine, so Russia panicked and invaded to push back, right? I'm not sure. All I'm talking about today mostly is all of the corruption that's been going on in Ukraine. I know that Russia is the aggressor in this instance, but I will say that Ukraine is in no way innocent. It's kind of been a back and forth for decades. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it was panic, but definitely NATO pushing up into Russia's doorstep. Yeah, that's right. I think it was the Donbass region. It's very rich in natural resources. Isn't there something we can do for the people? Yeah, so this is a problem that I run into too, because we know that the people in China probably do not approve of what the CCP is doing, but we know that the CCP is terrible. So there has to be a way to actually support the people who live there without supporting the government. I'm sure there are charities that can do that. In fact, that'll be one of the things that I look into after today's video, because I'm curious if there's a way to not use an NGO, but to go in and use an actual charity that's like trying to help. I know Ben Shapiro sometimes talks about there's an organization that helps with like religious people, like Jews and Christians in the area. And that might be a really good way to go for sure. Zelensky, that's a great way of putting that. Love how this is literally on camera, that there are people who still deny that it's true. Yeah, the Biden thing was crazy to me, because you can find so many fact checks saying, well, Biden didn't actually try to get this guy fired over Hunter Biden. I'm like, that has nothing to do with this. This is completely unimportant. Biden literally said, I will give you something for something else. And that is the textbook definition of a quid pro quo, which is exactly what they tried to accuse Trump of doing. Unbelievable to me. It still is. It always has been. Quid pro Joe. Yeah. And now my blood pressure's up. Don't let your blood pressure be up. We're going to look into it. It's very interesting. We're going to look into it. It's going to be great, frankly. Oh, my Trump impression really needs some work. I do think that it's going to be interesting to see it all come to light. I don't know how much of it will be allowed to get out. Like, we're seeing the Ukrainian government scrubbing some of this information from the website. I want to go into the Wayback Machine and find out the facts. That ring light is glaring hard. Yeah, my glasses are irritatingly glary. Positioning of my ring light isn't always perfect, but oh yeah, there it is. Hey, look like I have extra little eyeballs. Yesterday, I posted frustration about the Congress Zelensky crap, and some leftist commented, Trump for prison 2024. Yeah, see, people who comment stuff like that are almost actually human bots. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. There's no debating with them. So, and this is what I mean when I talk about like not trying to convince those people. There's no point. First of all, you don't know they're not actually a Twitter bot. Second of all, you're not going to change their mind. You're going to entrench them further, and they're going to just continue to disagree with you until they're blue in the face. And that's fine. What you need to be focusing on is people who are closer to the middle, who are kind of curious about what's happening. Like, I went into this fully good faith. I knew there had been corruption with Biden. I knew that Ukraine was very corrupt, but getting into the FTX stuff is wild, totally crazy. It makes me think there's some kind of huge conspiracy here, because all signs seem to point that direction. I'm not really like a conspiratorial person. I'm pretty suspicious of everything. I'm always asking questions about why people are doing what they're doing, what their motivation is. The question is always who benefits. And it is actually also who decides, because that's what it comes down to when you're looking at freedom of speech. Oh, I have a couple super chats. Thank you, guys. Let's see here. Now I can't read. You're welcome. Hopefully the glare being gone is worth it to you. Oh, let's see here. Can we stop paying taxes collectively? They can't arrest everyone. Those are not my words. These are fear melts spree. Okay, yeah. I have heard that theory. I'm not convinced that's the way to accomplish this, and I'm not even convinced these are tax dollars going over there right now. It feels to me, watching this, like everything is fake, and because we do have a fiat currency, it's kind of whatever they want it to be, and they can kind of print however much they want. And obviously, it's devaluing the currency insanely. This is why we're seeing this level of inflation we're seeing here. But this kind of inflation doesn't really matter to the Biden administration because they can just send money overseas to support a country that is not the US, while American people actually suffer. That's probably my biggest pet peeve. I care about the American people. I care about our unity. I hate that Ukraine is dividing us, and I hate that Joe Biden is using it like a lever to push Americans apart from each other. That's probably what makes me angriest about this. Wesley Snipes, vampire killer, tax hero. Thank you, Andy. I know you love Wesley Snipes. SBF is out on bail. That's correct. $250 million it took to get him free, but he made it happen. Interesting, since he was just saying that he had less than $100,000 to his name. Don't know where he got the money. I guess his family must have been pretty darn wealthy. I know my family doesn't have $250 million. Does yours? Sorry about the glare. You guys are going to have to put up with it so that I can read. Seriously, though, they spend our money, and meanwhile, we are Americans living paycheck to paycheck. My husband has to do extra overtime to afford our minor car repairs. Let's go, Brandon. Yeah. A lot of Americans are thinking the same thing. In fact, one of the other things I was going to look up was American approval for Ukrainian aid, because I don't think that Americans are very much in favor of this. The problem is that we elected these people who are now doing this. We made our bed, and now we're going to lie in it. Good and hard. It's going to be great. I don't know if America's going to survive 2 more years. We'll see. We'll see. I was thinking it was going to collapse in 5 years, but I don't know if it will even last 1 more. I don't know either. And part of the problem is that the GOP has zero spine, not a courageous bone in their bodies, because for whatever reason, to them, getting reelected is far more important than actually making a positive difference in the world. Frankly, couldn't be me. Could not be me. I do not have what it takes to be a politician, because I would be like, I actually care about the truth. I care about doing the right thing. I care about the people that I live with who live in my neighborhood. Is it in the Wayback Machine? That's what we need to find out. I'm going to make sure this link is in the description, and you guys are welcome to collaborate with me on Twitter. I will be looking into this immediately after I'm done here, because we're going to be eating pizza, and I don't want to be tempted to eat pizza. My aunt's posting about her scalloped potatoes. Now I'm angry at the government, and I want potatoes. Yeah, it's a great combination. Welcome to my life right now. I would love pizza, and also I'm really mad about this corruption. Anyway, Wormsworth says, hey pal, Merry Christmas to you. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy my Christmasification of the studio. It was great. I love decorating. I even put ornaments on my little plant that my mom sent me a couple years ago. Christine says, Merry Christmas, Lydia. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Merry Christinamus, says Andy. Good work. Put your glasses back on, darling. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, it wasn't working for me. I was very much squinting at the screen, but oh well. Anyway, I'm really trying to leave this on a positive note. I will say that this is nothing if not interesting. There's a lot going on here. There's 100% a ton of corruption that I feel like we could kind of get to the bottom of if we worked on it together. So if you guys see, I'm giving you a very special task today. If you guys see anything interesting, tweet it at me or tag me in it, and I will take a look at it. But it needs to be like actually factually provable. Like if you find a Wayback Machine link that has like information from the Ukrainian government website that's supposedly scrubbed, definitely send it my way. I will look at that for sure. I do just find it super interesting, and I like the idea. I don't think this will ever happen, but I like the idea of just like showing people something completely irrefutable that completely dismantles all their arguments in one go. And I know such a thing doesn't exist. You can't argue with people who are ideologically possessed, but it would be nice if I could make it happen. And a girl can dream, right? Anyway, I will leave you guys here this evening. I will go see what we're having out in the living room. Stop paying taxes. They'll just take your money and assets. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Well, they're watching your Venmo if you do more than $600. Oh, but they have, $48 billion they can just send over willy-nilly. No big deal. Complete double standards. But we know this is not telling us anything new. So keep the faith. Enjoy your Christmas preparations. I will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 23rd. Yep. 23rd, and then Christmas Eve, which is the 24th. And then over the course of the weekend, we will all celebrate Christmas. It'll be awesome. Everything will be sparkly and smell like cinnamon and vanilla. And we're going to play a bunch of games with our family. It's going to be great. It's going to be good times. And I think hopefully Christmas will be able to take our minds off some of this stuff and kind of bring us back to what actually matters, which is not all of this Ukrainian stuff. It is the fact that we have families who care about us and who we care about, even if we disagree on, for example, this Ukraine stuff. So I will leave it here with you guys. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully something less incendiary and a lot more fun. Until then, bye guys.